Next, we're going to have the Chaos Demons, or the question marks as I like to call them, because just look at them, they make absolutely goddamn no sense. Basically, these are the pure, terrifying, pure, fear-instilling ideas, imaginations, and thoughts that the warp produces by itself. Basically, it creates the idea of fear itself and replicates it through demons in the warp. So if you like the idea of these mystical, weird-looking creatures who are completely designed based off the fears of mankind the warp creates, demons are going to be your big thing. Now, how they play in the actual game. They are a heavy deep strike focused army. They love deep striking in and affecting the army through being like big melee damage, infiltrators, heavy movement mechanics don't really work with movement, but better like being there mechanics, and slowly infecting the board to make Battle Shock worse and worse, and basically I think being able to bring back units to a certain extent. Now, what are some of their strengths? Now, they can run in different kinds of armies, which is pretty cool. You can choose to take a selected amount of points, similar to how Imperial Knights work with the regular Free Blade ability. You can choose to take a specific amount of Chaos Demons inside another army. So if you want to run them with Chaos Space Marines, or you want to run them with War Eaters, or you want to run them with Death Guard, you can run them with those armies. So having that is still pretty good, because suddenly if you get like a really good deep striking unit you want to take in, and you like the look of the demon model, you can bring them in, use them, and go for gold. Another big plus about these guys, which is besides the gaming point, is that they've got some cool looking models. Like, because they're basically, the lore is that they're concealed of the pure fear, some of their units look absolutely awesome and absolutely a blast to paint. So if you want like an actual challenge of painting, and you want some really good like advancement abilities to like work upon, and a really good project to work on, I would highly recommend getting like a bit of a larger demons unit and just like simply having that as like a decorative piece, because it's very good. Now, they have their invulnerable saves work differently. I don't really remember how. I'm just bringing up the point that it does, is that it's more like the units get brought back or get like less damage done to them than the invulnerable saves. But that's besides the point. The point is that most of their abilities, like their army rule, the Shadows of the Chaos, allows the battle shock test to be performed on models and regain like a specific amount of lost wounds if they are in these like the area that they've infected. So they are slowly working through the whole board, forcing this warp energy throughout the board, and throughout the enemy you can like automatically pass battle shock test and like deal a D3 damage and heal the D3 damage wounds to the enemy, basically slowly healing you, coming back, corrupting the board, making it almost impossible to kill you, and creating that huge amount of effect you can bring into the game. And their attachment rule basically just allows them to like deep strike 6 inches away instead of like the 9 inches, and making it 10 times more mobile in the sense of like you have another stratagem, which means you can deep strike 3 inches away, which means you're coming in, deep striking tons and tons of units in, positioning them perfectly, corrupting the battlefield slowly to work in your own favor, and bringing back huge amounts of damage through like melee combat. And I would say that their ability to just like add movement through having a bunch of infiltrator units, they work really well in the sense of if you're looking for a really mobile unit that isn't mobile on foot but mobile everywhere else, then Demons is a big choice for you. But like I want to emphasize, they're a really good art project if you want to start one of those, so getting a big Demons unit isn't too bad. But Demons are a heavy deep strike centricated army who's going to be working heavily on dealing with melee and things like the Unclean One, who are going to be like running with them. I would imagine are going to be doing heavy amounts of melee damage. So you're looking for an army that's working heavily into deep strike and corrupting the board slowly, giving battle shock and healing D3 wounds, and Demons are going to be the choice for you. Moving on to our next Chaos army. Now we move on to the Chaos Knights, or the 5 big scary death robots. No longer the death robots, but the scary death robots. Basically, these knights are just similar to the knights that are found in the Imperial Knights, but they're built for the corrupted reasons of the Chaos Space Marines, and are forced to basically scare the enemy and force fear upon them as they charge into the battlefield. Now, in the strengths, their playstyle is simply to emphasize and use battle shock in a heavy amount of weight. Similar to Knights in the aspect of taking big amounts of units and taking, or not big amounts of units, but taking big units and really small compact armies, you're basically running with battle shock. Now, Unlike the regular knights who work through codes of honor, working through completing deeds to gain back their honor basically, Chaos Knights work in the idea of the opposite way, of instilling so much fear into the enemy that they actually run away and get so scared. So that's why they work so well with Battle Shock, basically making Battle Shock worse, healing from Battle Shock, getting buffs from Battle Shock, doing lethal hits with Battle Shock. Everything they do is working solely and tied in heavily with Battle Shock. So some are like their War Dog armigers, or like the Ravengers or the Desolators, like they all work heavily into the idea of Battle Shock. So, example, what's their thing? Their army rule. What is it? The Harborers of Death. That's right. Gives basically easier ways to get buffs as they're going through the game. So as you're progressing through the game, you're basically instilling more fear inside the enemy and giving the buff. So like at the start, you get to rerolls with enemies with Battle Shock. And like on round 1, enemies that are Battle Shock, you have to get like a -1 to Battle Shock effect. And like on round 3 to 5, you get to reroll full hits rolls against enemies that are Battle Shock. And they have plenty of attachments and stratagems that work in making like a -2 to Battle Shock, -1 to Battle Shock, healing D3 wounds from Battle Shock when going up against an enemy, which is a great stratagem by the way. And so everything they do is working heavily into the idea of cooperating with Battle Shock. Basically, look at those things. If that thing was charging up against you, you'd be terrified, and that's what they want to do. They want to feast off your fear and use it to make them better. So if you like the idea of utilizing the idea of Battle Shock and scaring the heck out of your enemy while running the similar Imperial Knight kind of area, you can definitely take them in their own fashion. And once again, the Imperial Knights more work towards taking bigger units, and the Chaos Knights more work towards taking smaller units. So if you want more of like the War Dog, like armiger units instead of like the big tanky, like just Desolator units, then Chaos Knights is also a great option for you. But if you like the more bigger units and don't like the smaller units, the Imperial Knights is the option for you in that case. And they also have and work in the way similar to the Freeblading unit, Freeblader ability, where you can take them in any Chaos army you want, similar to how Demons works. You can have your own big Knight War Dog armiger sitting in the back fourth of your World Eater's army if you want, shooting the heck out of them. But it wouldn't really make any sense. But that's the point anyway. But yeah, that is the Chaos Knights. Let's move on to the next Chaos army.